All right, so let's kick things off by dissecting the brain's nutritional makeup. Rachel, this might sound a little strange, but if you sucked out all the water content from the brain and just looked at its nutritional breakdown, what are we really left with here?
Well, most of the brain's dry weight is actually fats or lipids. It's amazing, right? Then you've got proteins and amino acids, some traces of micronutrients, and glucose. And, while it might not sound super exciting on paper, each of these has a really distinct role in keeping the brain functioning at its best.
So, and stop me if I'm jumping too far ahead, those fats, those lipids, they're really a big deal for the brain, right?
Absolutely. Especially omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. These are what we call essential fats, meaning our bodies can't make them on their own, so we've got to get them from what we eat. And they're crucial for maintaining the brain's cell membranes. Think of them as the walls that keep your brain cells intact and communicating efficiently.
Interesting. What kind of foods are we talking about here? Like, what should I be grabbing at the grocery store?
Great question. Think fatty fish like salmon or mackerel, walnuts, which are kind of fun because they even look like a brain, and chia seeds. A little sprinkle of those on your oatmeal can do wonders.
I gotta admit, I don't think I've ever looked at a walnut and thought, hey, brain food.
I know, right? Once you see it, you can't unsee it. But here's the flip side. While omega-3s and 6s are amazing, not all fats are created equal. Long-term consumption of trans and saturated fats, like what you find in processed snacks or fast food, can actually harm the brain, impacting memory and cognitive function.
Wow, so the same stuff that's bad for, say, your heart isn't doing your brain any favors either.
Exactly. And before we move on, I just want to touch briefly on hydration. It's so important for brain health. Even mild dehydration can mess with your mood and focus. So if you're feeling scatterbrained, maybe grab a glass of water before reaching for caffeine.
Okay, noted. Water first, coffee later.
Exactly. Oh, and one more thing. Dietary cholesterol. It tends to get a bad rap, but the brain actually uses it to build hormone-related pathways and keep cell membranes sturdy. You don't want to go overboard with it, but it definitely plays a role.
So it sounds like there's a ton happening here at a cellular level. For someone listening right now, what's one simple takeaway they can try today?
Start small. Maybe swap out chips for a handful of walnuts, or try adding a serving of salmon to your dinner this week. Tiny changes build up, and your brain will thank you.
I like it. Easy, actionable, and no major overhaul.
Exactly. Small wins. And honestly, that's kind of the theme here. Taking care of your brain doesn't have to be complicated, but it does take some intention.
All right, so we've talked about how the right foods can support brain health. But Rachel, let's dig a little deeper. Can what we eat really impact how we feel emotionally? This is one of those areas that fascinates people because it feels so personal.
Oh, absolutely. Food plays such a huge role in shaping our emotions. Proteins and amino acids are basically the building blocks your brain needs to produce neurotransmitters, those chemical messengers like serotonin and dopamine that influence mood, sleep, and even focus.
Right, like serotonin being tied to feeling happy, basically.
Exactly. And amino acids like tryptophan are key to producing serotonin. But here's the tricky part. Amino acids have to compete for space in the brain. So eating a balanced diet is what keeps these messengers balanced, rather than letting one take over and throw things out of whack.
Wow, so it's not just about what you eat, but how you combine foods too.
Exactly. For example, when I was preparing for my nutrition exams, super stressful by the way, I had to cut down on refined sugars. I noticed such a difference. It was like my brain wasn't riding that sugar roller coaster anymore. A lot of it ties back to how sugar spikes your blood sugar levels, and then you crash. It can really mess with your mood and focus.
That's so relatable. So what's the fix? Fewer sugary snacks?
Pretty much. Swapping out high sugar foods for options like oats or legumes keeps your blood sugar more stable, and that helps avoid emotional highs and lows.
Okay, and what about these micronutrients you're always mentioning?
The unsung heroes. Micronutrients like B vitamins and antioxidants are crucial for stabilizing mood and protecting your brain from fatigue and long-term decline. Think of it like giving your brain armor against everyday wear and tear.
And we're getting these from...
Fruits, veggies, whole grains. Oh, and leafy greens are packed with folic acid, which is amazing for your brain. It's like the trifecta of vitamins B6, B12, and folic acid all teaming up for your mental health.
Folic acid. Okay. Now I'm curious, where does the whole gut-brain connection fit into all this?
I'm so glad you asked. So, your gut is home to trillions of microbes, your microbiome, and they play a huge role in producing neurotransmitters. A happy gut equals a happy brain. That's why probiotics from things like yogurt or fermented foods are so important. They keep your gut flora healthy.
And wait, a lot of people always ask about caffeine. Good mood booster or not?
It's a double-edged sword. A little caffeine can definitely improve mood and focus, but overdo it, and it might actually spike anxiety. And energy drinks? Don't even get me started. They're packed with sugar, which we just talked about as a mood disruptor.
Got it, coffee, but in like moderation.
Exactly. And for anyone listening who feels overwhelmed, here's a simple, actionable tip. Include foods rich in fiber and protein to fight stress and stabilize your mood, like adding chickpeas to a salad. Small, easy changes can really go a long way toward feeling better day to day.
So Rachel, we've touched on how the right foods can stabilize our mood, but let's shift to something plenty of people wonder about: energy for the brain. We always hear that glucose is the brain's go-to fuel, but how do carbs really come into play here? Like, how do they shape how we think?
Okay, so here's the deal. The brain uses about 20% of the body's energy, and most of that energy comes from glucose, which is basically the simplest form of sugar your body breaks down from carbs. The key is what kind of carbs you're eating. High glycemic foods like white bread or candy give you a quick burst of energy and then a crash. That's why you feel mentally foggy or distracted after a sudden sugar dip.
Ah, gotcha. So is that where, like, low glycemic foods come in? You know, slow and steady energy kind of thing?
Exactly. Foods like oats, legumes, and whole grains release glucose more gradually. That keeps your brain running smoothly without those big highs and lows. I actually started swapping out sugary snacks for things like apple slices with almond butter, and it's like, wow, no more zombie afternoons.
Wait, zombie afternoons?
You know that post-lunch slump where you feel like your brain has shut down? That's usually what happens when your blood sugar crashes. If you make simple swaps, like choosing brown rice over white rice, or adding more fiber to your meals, you'll definitely notice a change.
Makes sense. So what about timing? Does when we eat impact like focus and productivity?
Absolutely. Timing's a game changer. For example, eating balanced meals at regular intervals helps keep your glucose levels stable. And then there's intermittent fasting, which some people swear by because it gives your body a break from constant digestion, potentially boosting mental clarity. But it really depends on, what works best for your lifestyle.
Right? So it's not one size fits all.
Exactly. And while we're on the topic, I've got to give a shout out to diets like the Mediterranean diet. It's loaded with brain-boosting foods like olive oil, nuts, and fresh veggies. It's one of the most well-researched patterns for long-term cognitive health.
All right, Rachel, you know I have to ask. What's one thing someone listening right now could try today for better brain energy?
Ooh, great question. I'd suggest swapping out a sugary snack for something like a handful of mixed nuts or a piece of fruit. It's simple, it doesn't require a ton of prep, and it'll give you longer-lasting energy without that crash.
I love it. Small changes that actually stick.
Exactly. Feeding your brain doesn't have to be complicated. Tiny, intentional steps make all the difference.
Rachel, this has been such an eye-opener. Honestly, I think we've covered so much ground today. From what builds a healthy brain to the daily food choices that keep it energized and sharp.
We really have. And just remember, anyone listening, your brain is always working for you, so take care of it. A little effort goes a long way.
Well, on that note, that's all for today's episode. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time on